housing starts, housing stocks, and leading indicators of the economy. Housing is actually a sector that leads the economy, right, in terms of growth, GDP, etc., etc. So it's really important to get access to this data to be able to drive economic growth and take informed decisions. I really appreciate everything I've heard from the National Bureau of Statistics, and in terms of collecting demographic data, the Central Bank of Nigeria also getting access to real estate information, materials information. It's really key to put all of that together. The NMRC with the housing market information portal, which is also key for the mortgage market. But I think it's also key to pay attention to sectors that are not as formal as the mortgage market, because the way people actually build their homes and get access to home ownership in Africa is not through the mortgage market, right? I mean, we all know this. People build their own homes, self-construction, and you have microfinance institutions that are involved in the space. In a country like Kenya, you have cooperatives, you have thousands of them, and those cooperatives, they call them SACCOs, actually finance housing, access to housing, and they're not mortgages. So I think when we have access to data, then we have a better understanding of what's really driving the market, right? I mean, why people are not using mortgages, why people are actually, self-building their own homes. They rather take 5, 10 years to finish constructing their homes instead of using my brother like Taf as a developer, right, to build their homes. So can we come up with innovations or ways of formalizing the sector a bit more, right, so that we can really accelerate the process of home ownership? And it's not only just for home ownership as well, right? Access to housing is also about rental, right? Rent to own and other strategies for home ownership or access to housing. So I think it's really key to diversify the source of data. Um, and my humble request really to all our countries is to strengthen our national Bureau of Statistics. They need proper funding, right, to do their job properly. And I think many of our countries have the same issue where data and statistics haven't been prioritized in the national policies. So I think it's key to reinforce these agencies and then have more frequent iterations of surveys, right? Social accounting metrics, having sector summary reports, real estate, construction sector reports would be key. And then the planned population census, as I've heard, I'm very happy to hear this because this was part of my request, is to take advantage of those national censuses to actually capture all the data, right? You mentioned number of bedrooms, quality of construction materials used in the houses. I think these are great opportunities to actually capture most of this information and not only population-centric sort of information. And then the Central Bank of Nigeria definitely is a great opportunity or a great area to collect and disseminate data, right, on residential lending activity and mortgage loan performance as well, which would really help banks understand the quality of the mortgage market and perhaps encourage banks to lend more to the sector if they know that the sector is not as risky as perceived. And then, the Central Bank of Nigeria can also help put in place comprehensive and standardized data gathering protocols and mechanisms and templates for government-funded housing initiatives, for instance. And then state governments also can disseminate indicators and reports on turnaround times. How long does it take to approve a construction building permit, or getting access to title registrations, because this would really help improve the quality of the administration, right, in the housing sector. And then finally, for us as DFIs, one thing that I can commit to today, and I think my friend Kesha will be happy to hear this, for every single project that Shelter Africa is going to finance, we would require that our developers that we deal with actually make some sort of data available and public, ready for us to use for the data gathering process that we're doing here. So this is our commitment we're making here. And also financial institutions that are working with us that we are going to finance will be working with them to develop standardized approaches to gather all the required data that's important for the industry, because this is the only way we can really be transformational and change the sector and change the industry. And we will be also pushing our other DFI partners that we work with globally to follow the same sort of principle, right? Because we can be enablers, we can facilitate the whole process because we are working with the ecosystem, we are an apex sort of institutions, right? And we can really help facilitate building the ecosystem and getting access to the data, working through our partners, developers, financial institutions, microfinance institutions, insurance companies, government agencies, you name it, right? So we can really facilitate this. So this is my commitment here today, Kesha, and happy to work with you and the whole team to put much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you look at the paper you have before you on this particular session, day one, session two, what do we need to do differently? And we have had a lot of very incisive ideas coming forward. Shelter Africa is saying that before they touch your project, they need to be sure that you have done the socioeconomic survey that justifies that investment in that locality. And that is so key because something happened in 2008. A friend of mine took up a loan from Federal Mortgage Bank and invested in a state. He didn't do the socioeconomic survey. When he finished that project, nobody could touch it because the rental, it was better for them to rent than for them to buy that property that they have built. And they're in court today, over billions of naira trapped. So if you look at the cost of our not paying attention to data, it is quite huge. And we need to change the narrative from the beginning. Before you decide on where to locate a project, have you done the socioeconomic survey to look at the absorption capacity, people in that place, how many people are willing to pay what you want to pay for it? So I think we've gotten a lot of things, and I'd like to remind us also of what Kesia mentioned, that on Thursday, we're going to have a session on data workshop that will be able to allow us by 12 o'clock here to be able to all sit down and find a way to articulate a workable program so that the rhetoric does not end. We try to look at some other things, and I must appreciate NMRC for what they have done. There are two things that NMRC have done for which they have not been given due credit. One of them is the issue of the modern mortgage and foreclosure law. Without foreclosure being in and do something to insist that any state that does not reduce the ease of, does not enhance the ease of doing business by looking at the number of days it takes to get building approval, by looking at the number of days it takes to perfect title transfer and reduce them, we can decide as the people whose investments are being encumbered to decide we will not make investment in those states. And that will be a very bold statement that will quicken and make sure that they begin to do something. But this has to come from the data. So I want to appreciate all that have spoken. We'll take some few questions, comments, then we'll revert back to them because we are very conscious that our time is winding down. And one of my friends, Hakim Oguniron, is eyeing me because he's the moderator of the session. Your eyes got to me. So I'd like to take maybe one or two comments. Please. Okay. We have five. Okay. Yes. Ladies first. Let's take Dr. Chi Akwaji, the chairman, Shelter Africa Board. Madam, please, you have the floor. Let's give a clap offering from him. Clap offering. Let's appreciate her. Oguniro.
It's good afternoon, everybody. Let me stand on established protocols, as has been mentioned several times here. Let me start by thanking all the presenters, really, for such insightful, presentations on the various initiatives to deal with the data question, which has really bedeviled the housing ecosystem, since I got involved in it. And as we all know, we're already verifiable, measurable, reliable data. You're really working in a vacuum, and that is the reason why, despite all this talk of initiatives that I've heard, there hasn't really been that impact in the Nigerian sector, housing sector. Let me reference the presentation from Kesia, which is really informative, where there are so many instances of data not being available. Not even the number of residential mortgages provided, which is, I'm sorry to say, is disgraceful for this economy. It is disgraceful. So, in listening to all these initiatives from NMRC, for which I was a part of, from a National Population Commission, from Federal Mortgage Bank, from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and from the National Bureau of Statistics, I begin to ask myself, what is that connecting dot that we need to identify that will now create some kind of informing thread? Because I listen to all of this and I feel that everybody is working in their own silo. I'm sorry to say, that's the way it's appearing to me. You're all working in your own silos, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. So what is that connecting thread that we need to identify to come up with more targeted, measurable, and impactful intervention in the sector that can begin to change the narrative that we've heard from Kesia's analysis, working with our partners, so that instead of saying that data is not available or that data is not verifiable or it's not trustworthy, we can actually say this is the available data on this, no matter how minimal. So I think that's a starting point. And then another starting point is to what extent, because data, even if we get it, no matter how, crusty or crude it is, it doesn't make sense. It is useless if it is not utilized to impact policy at both the national as well as local level. So what efforts can we make as part of this whole story of making housing happen to move beyond just saying, oh, we've been doing this, we've been doing that, but actually analyzing the data, making it available to the policymakers who will now legislate on the enforcement of that data so that impact can be made. So these are the questions I've had. I like to reference the example of both Egypt and Kenya. Kenya in particular. And I know the MD of Shelter Africa will support me. The current president of Kenya, William Ruto, is so big on housing, massive on housing. And one of the reasons why he's not a housing expert, but one of the reasons why his interest in housing is that an institution like the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Association has been providing government with regular reporting on housing sector dynamics that has led to policymakers, legislators realizing that, look, this is an opportunity we should harness to really move our economy forward. There's the Egypt version as well. I remember during the AFDB annual meetings in Sharm el-Sheikh, the lady from, I can't remember, Egyptian finance, May Abdelhamid, also said the same thing, how the whole institution has sort of metamorphosed into almost, lifeline for the government in terms of providing data on housing that has generated not only massive loans from the World Bank, and then also has been influential in growing the sector in Egypt. So my question is, what can we do? How can we replicate this within the Nigerian ecosystem, rather than just working in silos as we have done here, or trying to just promote what individual organizations are doing? And I dare say a good starting point will maybe to work with, create some kind of a task force, yes, comprising of all these players here that can move forward with that. Look for a structure, look for funding. As the MD of Shelter Africa said, this is something that could also fall in line with what is proposed to CAHF. African Development Bank, I'm sure, would also be willing to look at that because it's regional, it's continental. So really, while I really commend all of the presentations, I think it's important that we begin to look at identifying an informing thread, link it back to national housing policies or local housing policies, but also look to greater enforcement with a view to measuring, monitoring, and evaluating, and then more effective measurement of the impact. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. Can we create a task force, a structure to look at what we need to do going forward? Already we have NMRC on board as a member of Nigerian Real Estate Data Collection and Management Program. You are warehousing the data. Also, we have the Federal Mortgage Bank on board in that. We also have Nigerian Population Commission on board. We have Central Bank of Nigeria on board. We have Nigerian Bureau of Statistics on board. The only group that we may not have on board as of today is Shelter Africa. But by the statement they made, you are already on board today. Because they mentioned something that is so pivotal. So you're on board. AUF, HF have been on board also. So what we may have to do is to have the other members, we have 7 here. We have the other 9 members. We invite them to be able to meet so that we can decide how to move beyond rhetorics. You mentioned something that is critical. We have data, but they are in many places. When Kesha was speaking and she said she couldn't get data from CBN, I looked at Dr. Mike Mba and asked myself, if we are together, she won't say that because we have to find a way of doing that. If I might say something, in 2017, the collaboration we called the Nigerian Real Estate Data Collection and Management Program came as a result of a request from CBN for us to give them data from developers. Then I was the president of Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria. I went to their office and told them, I will not give you data, The data you are asking for is an insignificant portion of the real data we have and we needed to have. After that presentation to I think Dr. Tumala, the director of statistics, he said he's on board. Let's invite other parties. And what we should do is to ask each person, what kind of data do you need? Then we'll be able to funnel a questionnaire that contains all the areas of data need of all the parties, and then administer them to the people, collect it back, process it, so that everybody has the data they are asking for. I'm sure that we can do that. We have 16 trillion pension funds. A quarter of that, 4 trillion, is available for investment in housing. If the MD of FMBN mentioned that they have not been able to give more than 130 billion, that means we have 4 trillion available funds with a pension come. The question is, what do we need to do? What kind of data do we need to organize to be able to have access to this 4 trillion that is available as of today? We have 10 million contributors to the pension fund as of today. So how do we move forward? And that is the question you're asking. I'll ask Professor Nubi, who is itching to make a contribution. If you make it, bang, 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 we can take.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Shi, thank you so much. You made my day. You've really given the solution. That there will be no break for these people that are here.
Yes.
When we go on break, they lock themselves somewhere and sign memorandum of understanding that from today they continue to work together. But that's the way. Because we can't be suffering and we have people from Federal Mortgage Bank, Population Commission, Bureau of Statistics. This is Nigeria sitting here. What we need is from them. Then we have the national, the regional, the RHETORIC now, looking at it from African region. The problem we have in the country is that we've been working in silos. And as she highlighted, until we decide to work together, we can't get anywhere. So the working together starts today. That is how there could be an end to the rhetoric. So having said that, thank you so much, the MD of RHETORIC, for your contribution. I sat with one of your staff, Israel, when we were being told that the contribution of mortgage to GDP is less than 1%. And everybody in the hall looked frustrated. You can see gloom. Especially when we are told that in UK, 76%, and here, less than 1%. And I quickly comforted the young man that, look, this is not our story. Nigerians are not living on the street. Neither are we living on the tree. We are living in a house. I'm living in a proper house. Funded not through mortgage. So what you said is apt. Collecting our data. Gate. How are Nigerians funding their houses? Mortgage cooperative, micro association. How can we intervene? We, the funder and the promoter, how can we intervene? Because there is huge African knowledge. There's a school of thought now, going back to African knowledge. That was just 1 second. There was a breakthrough in science about 2 years ago, whereby they said that in one of the British universities, a medical doctor discovered that one of the ways to ease urination when you want to urinate is to tap your side and tap your side. And they saw it as a medical breakthrough. I said, I give the award to my grandmother. Every African mother will pat the child at the side like this and say, "Sss," and that induces urination. That's knowledge. That's Africa. We have knowledge. We are ways of doing our things that were not captured by data, by World Bank. We have to look at this when we ask this question, what type of house are you living? How did you fund it? We need to ask that question. How did you fund it? So that we can intervene. Our banking system, our financial system can intervene in this. Thank you so much. Since we have this workshop on Thursday, I believe that it should be a platform to continue discussion. We must get it right. Thank you so much.
We'll continue discussion on Thursday, but I'm sure that my sister, Olani Pekum, heard that question. How did you fund your house for National Nigerian Population Commission? It's one of the questions we can include because it's good to get some of this data by having an inclusive questionnaire that we administer to our people. Thank you so much. When Professor Nubi asked that we should lock ourselves up, all the people here, there was no protestation from any of you. So you agreed to be locked up. So we'll take one or two more. Then we'll, yes, then we'll take. Please, if you ask question. We have received enough lecture here, and we receive an additional 2 now. So we need questions now.
The panelists and participants, I want to thank you all for your contribution. My contribution or question is from the last comment you made, Reverend. You talk about ease of doing business. Cut across land administrators, 36 state governments. I also want to quickly add, you say, giving us CFO approval for building, it's not enough. We also need to know the cost of this approval has been processed. Where one director, assistant director, will sit somewhere, the calculation for how much you're going to pay is on his head. There's somewhere you can go from your office to see the breakdown, what constitutes what you are paying. It's a terrible thing. Also, where a developer will go to black market to source for the land. Nobody will ask you how much you buy the land, but they want to regulate what to do with the land. We also need to ask the land administrators, can they cut out a portion? Yes, governors have all the land during his tenure in his state. Can we also partner with developers to say a portion of this land is given to a serious developer? I can see my landlord, TAF, CEO of TAF, where my landlord back record, he was able to achieve that because there's a partnership between him and the River State government as at that time that made that to happen. But many could not achieve that because the land is not readily available. When it's readily available, you have to pass through the black market to pay for this land, not government allocation. And the infrastructural deployment have to be done wholesale by the developer. I think we need to address that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for emphasizing that because I mentioned transaction time and transaction costs. These are 2 elements that determine ease of doing business in any jurisdiction. I'm sure we're going to do that. Many of the questions and comments are issues for the workshop on Thursday because it will be an interactive session. We'll be able to have a brief discussion after this. Then we will be in a position to this. Permit me to say we won't take more questions because already we're supposed to end by 2:30 and we have overshot our time. I'd like to give each of the panelists some 30 seconds to 1 minute to make their closing remarks in the light of the questions and comments they have received, starting from my immediate, my brother, Kehinde Ogundumi. No, you can use this thing.
Yeah, I think the matching order is very clear: cooperation, collaboration, and coordination, and we promise to abide by that. In fact, most of the things that Dr. Chi said are things that we're already doing. We have a standing committee now. We have defined the data space, and on Thursday we had planned to sign so many MOUs and agreements. So maybe she's just sitting to the freedom. I was avoidant, but
Thank you very much. I'm to repeat what I said. Uh, just to mention to make initiative a priority, right? I think it's important to brand it. For me, branding is key. And the way we can do it is exactly what other institutions have done, just improving the environment. I used to work for the World Bank Group, and I used to run slash to be doing this. Today, it doesn't exist. I don't do those things anymore. But one thing that I've been discussing with Keisha on my left, since back in the days, was to do something similar for the housing sector. So doing business in housing, we'll call it that way. We'll come up with indicators that would track the performance of each country, of each state within a country, like in Nigeria, where you can have subnational sort of doing business in housing indicators, right? And it will tell you how long it takes, how much it costs to get access to or title registration, foreclose a home, etc. So you define all these indicators, and then you have a use of the data. My chair was saying that as part of her presentation, or part of her comment. Basically, data has to be used for something. So I think if we can improve the enabling environment thanks to that kind of data, by showing which countries are doing progress, which states are doing progress, and that would encourage investors to actually go in there. And I think that's also a way to address what you were just saying, moderator. If a state is not performing in terms of time to delivery of construction permit or cost of construction permit or other items that are required to do a project, then investors won't be encouraged to go there, right? So I think this branding for me would be one way to achieve this goal. And as Shelter Afrique would be very supportive of such an initiative. Thank you.
I love a panel discussion where every person builds on the ones before and it just grows, and then you end the panel discussion with a whole new set of ideas. It's just wonderful. I think there are a couple of things. Dr. Chi, the comment about silos, part of the reason that we're in silos is because we're each collecting different data differently. And so the reason we want to come up with standards for data collection and for data, for how you put data into the spreadsheet, the rules that you follow in terms of its syntax and so on, is so that you can create cross comparisons that then break those silos down. And that's in fact the focus of the workshop on Thursday, about this notion of tidy data. How do you make data so that the data that you collect and the data that you collect can speak to one another, even if it comes from different places? So I think that's a really important thing to do. Towards this long conversation that Habib and I have had for a number of years now, we've been initiating first in Kenya, and we're growing it now in Nigeria as well, something we've been calling the Open Access Initiative. And within that, it's to promote primarily developers, but also lenders, to share the data of their experience in doing their own business. But it's at that micro level, right? So it would be developer, and one of the things we're doing is collecting steps, time, and costs. You're right, you can't hold people accountable. And I honestly don't think that government understands how much it costs the developer when it takes so long. I don't think they actually know that there is a monetary attached to that, which then impacts on the number of houses you can build, because it changes the to give them the data for that argument. So we are completely committed to working with this, and just for developers and lenders to know that they must also participate. I mean, we can't do it without them because their experience is what we need to document.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think, from the universe of all the opinions and conversation we've had here, the position, the solution to this, everything is all about collaboration. We all, just like he has said, all the agencies are here. And if you allow us to go, that means we'll go back to where we are. So I think let's take it from this point to move forward and collaborate. Where MPS, the National Bureau of Statistics, is very much ready to offer all the technical support and advice toward generating and developing this expected database. Other countries have done it. A couple of other countries like Botswana, Ghana, they've had a very robust housing and mortgage database, and it's something that is needed for investment decision, for policy decision, and all the rest. So I think it's not a very difficult thing for the players in terms of the data generation and policy to come together and develop this database. Thank you very much.
Thank you. From my experience, because we are talking about data and housing data, from my experience, coordinating the technical team for the Nigerian real estate data collection project, what the sector lacks in this area is leadership. NMRC has taken it upon itself as a key player to lead. They are not supposed to, because they are a player. I don't know how we're going to talk to the ministry. The ministry is supposed to lead. The ministry can invite MBS. The ministry can invite the Federal Mortgage Bank, NMRC. So if we don't tell the ministry, this is your role. My director at a point wanted to pull all of us back. He said, because the owner of what you're compiling is not interested. So why will you go and be struggling to compile? At the time, the industry tells the chairman, when I mean the chairman, I mean the ministry, that you are failing in your duties. You can't make housing policy, and then a critical part of monitoring the effectiveness of that policy is ignored. You can coordinate all this, and that's what is key here. Thank you, sir.
It's actually wrapped it up very nicely. Population Commission is all out to collect data, and collaboration will only add more value and credibility to whatever work we do. And if there's no such platform that can really put all players together, then we shall all still continue to wink in the dark. The questions continue to exist because we don't know where the answer, answers do not come together on the same page with the question. If the ministry can actually come up with a good platform for every player, then of course we have all it takes, all the questions. And having that kind of platform will also add to the effort of the to get the census conducted. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, we're short of time, so I would say we should move from being on the way to actually actualizing the dream of having a database for our housing sector. Thank you.
In closing, I would like to say that I want to appreciate you all for the comments. I'd like to only mention the fact that over the years, we waited for government. And I happen to be on the governing council of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. And we did a survey, and we discovered that the organized private sector employs 85% of Nigerians who are working. And therefore, why do we allow the person who employs 15% to determine the tone of things. So we need to move ahead and have ourselves. Why NMRC could do what they are doing is because they have not had the change in key drivers of their function for some time now. That's why they can remember what happened in 2018 and follow up on what Professor Yangete and Dr. Chi were doing. And there have been continuity. So we have to have private sector drivers to make this work. Otherwise, we'll be trapped within the vicissitude of rapid political changes in the key drivers of ministries, agencies of government. So I want to thank you all. We're going to take picture. After taking our picture, even if it is for 1 minute, we have to obey what we agreed with the suggestion from Professor Nubi, even if for a minute. We go there so that it will appear to everybody that all of us, no, only people here, will go there for 1 minute, Hakim, and then we'll come out. We have had a structured meeting that they told us to have. On behalf of the board of AIHS and our dear friend Festus, I'd like to thank all of you for not only coming, but for contributing effectively. We're going to take a picture here, then we'll be able to call it a day. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe you can do better than that. A round of applause for them. You just witnessed the conclusion of the first session of the 2023 edition of the Africa International Housing Show, Beyond Rhetorics to Homes, Making Housing Happen. A round of applause for the moderator once again and the participants. I did say earlier that I was looking forward to the discussions and everything that will be coming from it. And I would like to reiterate the words of Professor Nubi: we must get it right. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Thank you. At this point, I want to announce that for our special guests and the VVIPs, you can just go to the VIP room there. If you want to take tea, you want to stretch your legs, please just go there by the left and you can take tea, and please come back because we are continuing with the sessions. So for our VIPs, ushers, please, I want you to coordinate this. It is only for the VIPs. Only for the VIPs. You can go there for tea or coffee and come back in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. Security, if you can man that door, please, only for the VIPs. Thank you. So we're just going to take 5 minutes break, 5 to 10 minutes, and we will be back to continue with the last session for today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please, we have 5 to 10 minutes for this. Thank you. Thank you, studio.
A warm African welcome to you. Thank you for joining us from all corners of the world to explore the African continent together. At this year's Africa International Housing Show, we can all look forward to a productive and colorful exhibition experience, an insightful conference that delivers both in terms of knowledge and influential networking opportunities. We have exciting discussions to look forward to. There will be ample opportunity to network with peers and take advantage of all opportunities the African real estate and construction market offers. We have dedicated main conference sessions for CEOs, political leaders, leading organizations, and financial institutions. Please feel free to capitalize on this sales and networking opportunity throughout the 4 valuable days. Also, explore, live stream, schedule a meeting or sign an MOU with investors, finance institutions, developers, and real estate companies, and connect with the event by downloading our user-friendly mobile application, ARHS Connect, from Google Play Store or Apple Store. We are certain that your decision to invest your valuable time in this much anticipated largest housing and construction event in Africa will prove both enjoyable, profitable, and worthwhile.
Thank you, media. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, media. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, VIPs, our tea break is over. Can we please begin to converge in the hall, please? Our tea break is over. Please, can we come back to the hall? Our time is fast spent already, and we need to get straight to the next session before we leave today. Please, if you're done with your tea, can you come back to the hall? Ushers, if you can help me pass this information to our VIPs. Tea break is over, please. Tea break is over. Tea break is over, please. We should begin with the next session in the next 5 minutes. Thank you. Media, you can continue with what you were playing. Thank you. Thank you, media. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we are ready for the next session. I want to say that you are invited for the CEO cocktail. For all CEOs here present, you are invited for CEO's cocktail for Wednesday, the 26th of July, 2023 at 5 p.m. It is happening at the Utopia Bath and Kitchen, Wiltord Plaza, plot 903 or Bafemi Awolowo Way, Utako, next to Kia Motors. Next to Kia Motors. For all CEOs here present, you are invited for the CEO cocktail on Wednesday, 26 July 2023, 5 p.m., plot 903 of Bafemi Awolowo Way, Utako, next to Kia Motors. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going straight into the last session for today. Please help me welcome the founder and CEO, Eximia Realty, the chairman board of LBIC. He's going to be the moderator of this session. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Hakim Oguniran. A round of applause for Mr. Hakim Oguniran, founder and CEO, Eximia Realty, chairman board of LBIC. Please keep clapping till he makes his way on stage. Thank you very much. He's one of the board members of HDAN. A round of applause for him, please. A round of applause. You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. MC, please, you have to help me bring all those big men in here. You know, just drag them by their head. Hello. So we're going to just give us 2 minutes and drag them myself. Thank you, Professor Nubi, for coming out. Thank you, Jide. I think we'll just start. Others will be joining us. I'd like to thank you for your patience in ensuring that we sat through the opening ceremony and first and second sessions, which were merged together. Now, you all will agree with me after the last session that it's very clear that the role of data in the performance of our industry can never be overemphasized. So we've seen issues around data, but the question is, we have a new national housing strategy, which was launched on the last day in office. You know, some of us wondered why it took 8 years before the last administration did so many things, including launching a national housing strategy on the last day of the administration. But that's not the issue today. So we have a new national housing strategy. And as you know that in this country, we are never bereft of policies, we're never bereft of plans, we're never bereft of strategic documents. we've always had issues with execution and executional excellence. That's been a major issue. Now, if you've gone through this new national strategy, part of what I find very interesting and very comforting is that some of the key problems of the industry form the bedrock of the strategy. So you see the strategy talking about collaboration, talking about inclusiveness, talking about integrating the various elements of the housing ecosystem in order to ensure that we're able to deliver on housing this time around. So our